Together. We're about to get real funky. We're about to get real funky in here, y'all. Y'all gotta make some noise before we do this. I say y'all gotta make some noise before we get real funky. That ain't loud enough. If y'all make noise, I know y'all ready. Let's go. Y'all know nothing about that. Y'all know nothing about that. That's that Minneapolis. You know, that's the Minneapolis flavor. But anyhow, hope you guys are doing well here. This is my little Sunday deal that I do every Sunday now. You know, trying to bring some dimension to our discussions. For those people that are here, please hit the like button, share, and subscribe. We have a very special guest coming up here. His name, we call him Dr. Dunbar or Dr. Anwar Dunbar. BGS and the rest of the crew call him Mr. Goodbar or something like that. but yeah, we're going to have a very, very serious discussion, very informative discussion on his journey of how he became who he is now, and what does it take? Because I think, we throw these titles around like, professor, doctor, or whatever, but we don't, we like to eat the hot dogs, but we don't understand the process of making the hot dogs, if that makes any sense, right? And again, for those people, please hit the like button, share, subscribe, because this is not a usual for some of us. This is something where we're going out of our free time and give you a whole different insight of what's going on in this profession. So we're going to bring up Dr. Dunbar, and later on we're going to have a more spread out conversation based on his answers in the interview. So without any further ado, you guys get your hands together for Dr. Dunbar. What's going on, good brother?
Hey, Arnisto, how you doing? Thanks for inviting me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So how's your Sunday?
It's going okay. It's going okay. I got a little walk in and did a little I put something on my plus one's her truck.
Okay.
I put the truck cover on. I never did that. It took me a couple hours, but I finally got it done. So yeah. And I was thinking, and as I was doing that, and we'll talk about this, I'm sure, when you do a part of doing a PhD in the sciences,
Yes.
it involves critical thinking. It involves a lot of even in the biological sciences. I come from the biological sciences, putting things together, reading directions, setting up instruments. So the things you learn from a science career really empower you to do a lot of things, even if you don't stay in science, or even if you're just poking around your home or someone wants you to do something. Anyway, go ahead.
So let me get this straight. So you don't have to put on a lab coat to do scientific things in your everyday life?
No.
Really? Oh, okay.
And actually, you don't even have to put on a lab coat to do science as a full-time career.
Oh, we're going to get into it. Okay. Y'all hear that? So we pull the lid off of some things, because some people think that, hey, you're supposed to have like a lab coat and some gloves and, but it's more dimensional to this science thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So would you please introduce yourself as far as who is Dr. Anwar Dunbar?
Okay, well, that's an open-ended question. My name is Dr. Anwar Yusef Dunbar. I am a regulatory scientist. Let's see. I'm originally from Buffalo, New York. In terms of my educational path, I feel like it started early. We're going to talk some more about this, but Buffalo has one technical high school, Hutch Tech High School. We had majors at that high school, so I majored in biotechnology as a high school student, which is just AP biology at the end of the day. An undergrad, I started at a PWI. I didn't declare a major, and then I transferred to an HBCU, Johnson C. Smith University. And I really figured out how to be a student there. In high school, I wasted a lot of time in high school, and I wasn't focused. And when I got to my HBCU, I figured out how to focus and do my schoolwork, and I got rewarded for that. I got accepted to the University of Michigan, the Department of Pharmacology. I received my training there. which is similar. You got all of you probably know Nicole. Me and Nicole could probably sit and talk for hours about our doctoral training. And when she comes to my channel, you hear us talk about research and standard deviations and grants and all those things. So I worked on my thesis project for about 5 to 6 years. I did a postdoc in toxicology at the Department of Health at Albany, New York. I got hired into the public sector. So I'm a Fed. I work for the federal government. I'm not going to say which agency I work for right now. Yeah, just to maintain some anonymity there. But I work in regulatory affairs now. Do you mind if I drop some links? Because I'm also a writer. I do a lot of different things. I'm like
do your thing, brother. Do your thing. This is your thing.
Yeah. So I have 2 blogs. The first one, I actually did write a series of pieces when I first started the platform about what pharmacology is and what toxicology is and what regulatory science is, because one of the things I thought about is that I could be doing a lot more good than just sitting in my cubicle registering chemicals, because that's what I do for my 9 to 5. I register chemicals, but every chance I got, I would go do career days over in PG County. For those of you unfamiliar with the DMV, PG County is kind of like the black section of the Washington, D.C. area. Washington, D.C. is not Chocolate City anymore. but PG County is still where a large chunk of the melanated population lives.
Right.
Every chance I got, I would go do a career day over there. And a good number, wow, you'd be surprised to hear this, Art, but a good number of people over there and even other federal employees would say, you're the first Black scientist that I've met.
We're going to go into that.
Yeah, which is astounding, because you think about all the federal agencies, just the sheer concentration of professionals and white collar people in Washington, D.C. You got people from Howard. In terms of us, you got people from Howard, Hampton, even PWIs like Michigan or Ohio State. And again, I heard, you're the first Black scientist that I ever met.
Wow. You're a fairly young man.
Yeah, you know what? I've learned that's relative. That's relative. I'm in my, BGS would say that I've entered eldership. I'm in the mid-40s crowd now. So, but that's relative. For someone in their 60s, that's still young. Ron Will said, "Hey, you're still a young man," so it's relative.
Yeah, because for someone, think about it. They're telling you this 2020, around it, 2021, 2022. They're telling you around this time where it's supposed to be a quote unquote post-racial society. You know what I mean? So, and it's like there should have been, like we spoke about Percy Julian and things like that. There should have been more of a cadence of people that were, latching on and taking on this profession and growing. So we're here today hearing someone tell you, and you had Black colleges around there telling you, oh, you're the first one, I'm like, wow. So that's something, that we have to unpack a little later. But go ahead.
So, Art, before you go on, everyone, I'm going to drop 3 blog posts in the chat. I wrote these years ago. The first, in order, the first one's going to be about what pharmacology is, in case you're interested in reading about that. I tried to write these to be very general and for the layperson. So the first one will be about pharmacology. The second one will be about toxicology. And the third one will be about regulatory science and regulatory affairs. Yeah, a lot of folks don't know what these are. So we got to get the word out, especially in our communities. So go ahead.
Yeah. So, and before you answer this question, you guys out there, there's a Cash App at the top of the chat box, and plus his channel is in the description box as well, and all the other information about him that he has on his channel. Please click on those things. Please subscribe to his channel, and please subscribe to his your magazine, correct?
Well, actually, it's funny you should ask that. I'm starting a newsletter, so folks, because I'm working I have a lot of projects going, but that's what I learned in graduate school, to have multiple things going at once. I'm working on a book project, and I'm starting a newsletter. So if folks would sign up for that, that would be helpful. Now, the other things, I don't know which channel. Again, Ron Wills is one of my influences. I have multiple channels. So if folks would subscribe to the science channel, that would be very helpful. I don't know if you put
You
that
have
in.
that in, you have that in the description box.
Okay. Yeah, folks, if you could subscribe to the science channel, and please take a look at the content. I have, I do pre-records, I do live streams on myself about current science topics and stories, but I also have guys like Engineering Cannabis. He's there in the chat. I have Keep It Techie come over sometimes. I have Professor Black Ops come over sometimes, and we talk about things that, I hate to say this, but are people like talking about Will Smith slapping Chris Rock? We like talking about
the important stuff.
We
Okay.
like talking about Red Table Talks. We like talking about Coachella. We like talking about all that stuff. But the stuff me and Engineering Cannabis and Keep It Techie, these are things that this is where the world is going. 5G, quantum computing, blockchain technology, artificial intelligence, machine learning. We're talking about some important stuff. Complex design comes over sometimes. We talk about micromobility and the IoT. We're talking about some important stuff, but you got to get the messaging out.
Okay. Now, can you give us a little bit more in depth of what your channel is about? Or I guess you have 3 channels?
I actually have 4.
Jeez, 4 channels. Okay.
Yeah. But some folks have that many. Some folks have more. Yeah. So what I did was, I came to YouTube as a writer, because I have this book project I'm working on, which actually, can I say a few words about this?
Go ahead.
All right. Yeah. So my book project is called The Engineers, a Western New York basketball story. And what the story is about is it's a narrative journey through my high school basketball experience. You might say, why is Dr. Dunbar writing a book about that? Well, that was my first time trying something and doing something. A lot of kids had dreams of, being a basketball player, but I got so much from that experience. It didn't turn out the way that I wanted to, but I learned a lot of key lessons that went with me into the adult world and into my science training. So it's a basketball sports story, but it's also a life story. And,
now, this is basketball,
it's also
or basketball at University of Michigan.
Sorry?
Basketball at University of Michigan or in high school?
No. This was at Hutch Tech High School in Buffalo.
Okay, go ahead.
But it's also, and this will probably intrigue you, it's also to a large degree a manhood story, because it talks about what happens as a boy, when you have to learn how to do things without men being around. And basically, in this instance, the arena was the basketball court. But for anything, especially for a young boy, a young man, there are things that you need to know when you're going out into the world. And if you don't know those things, there's going to be a reckoning at some point for you. And when I look back at that experience, I realized, there weren't a lot of men around to kind of show me some things and be an advocate for me from the sidelines. And so that's what it's about. I'm going to drop that link in the chat if it's okay with Art. People can take a look at it.
Right here.
Yeah. Anyway, I forgot what your last question was.
It was just mainly just go, if you want to go in depth with a few of your channels, so people get
Yeah. So
know what they're subscribing to.
Yeah. So the first year, so I came as a writer, and the first year was just playing around, seeing what would work, figuring out how to get traction in different areas. So if you look at my first year on my original channel, Big Discussions76, it's all over the place. As the image guy, I'll just say the image guy. You guys know who the image guy is. As he said, his first content creation wasn't very pretty. And then I think when BGS got doxxed and went away for the first time, I think I created a video about that, and I sent it to him on Twitter, And I like to say I helped encourage him to come back to YouTube.
Okay.
And so then I got into some discussions with, the Roger Report and Charles and BGS came over a couple of times. And so I did some panels, some interesting, fun panels. And then I decided to just branch out and spin off some other channels because the Michigan football content was doing really well. And there's a whole community for that. And then I realized, you know what? I need to be visible as a scientist. Maybe someday I can become a Neil deGrasse Tyson like influencer. Oh, by the way, a lot of folks don't know who Neil deGrasse Tyson is in our
I
community.
know they know his face, but they don't know his name. Yeah.
We'll come back to that, and then I'm a geek at heart, just like me and my brother, just like Artisan. So I said I could just make a channel about just talking about media and books and TV shows and movies. I see these channels as digital storefronts, and if you can, monetize each one, you can, start a business.
Yes.
Content creation, that's a business. A lot of folks don't know that. A lot of folks think we're just on here just playing around. Some people are.
Right.
Some people are treating it like a business.
Right. Yeah.
So
Now, okay, so you guys out there, please hit the like button, share, subscribe. We want to really get deep into this, especially this next question. Go ahead, brother.
all right. By the way, before I move on, you'll find this funny. Yesterday I made announcements on my original channel, my science channel, that Art Newstall wants to interview me tomorrow, and I used a picture of what's his name, Bob Ross, the painter.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So shout out to the Roger Report. Roger commented underneath, "Oh, I thought that was Art Newstall." I was like, no, that's not Art Newstall.
Wow, the fro. I
But
had
he
a
uses
fro when
that.
I was younger though, but
But he uses that GIF in all of his live streams. So
yeah, it's very important. It keeps you. I figure that when you're having these live streams, I kind
Mhm.
of got this. I had to give BGS the credit because he encouraged me, but you gotta keep people watching. So even if you're hearing something, you see somebody drawing something, it's almost like mesmerizing in a way, to where it's like, okay, well, I'm trying to get into conversation, but wow, look what he's doing. So it keeps you there because some people are like, okay, he's not done. I'm not leaving until he's done. Sometimes
Mhm.
it takes me a while to draw, like finish something, so they're not leaving. And though for those people out there, and if you don't know who, like whenever I'm drawing people and they're like, who is that, such and such, I'm not telling y'all. People have been trying that for years. I'm like, no, because if I told you, you'd be like, okay. And then later on, they're gonna start finding the worst thing. And this probably, I don't know if it is like this in science, but the worst thing is when people try to comment on something about what you're doing when you're not done.
Mhm.
It's like, wait a minute, I'm not even done yet.
Mhm.
So I keep it and just have them just keep trying to guess. Then later on, they go, oh, all right, so you just created medicine. All right, you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
By the way, the first time I saw you on, I don't know if it was your channel or one of BGS's panels, I was like, wow, this guy is drawing during the live stream.
Yeah, I figure because I can't be still, so I'm like, I might as well practice. Usually this is practice. I'm just trying to, stay in the loop because when you're teaching, you're not really focusing on your professor. You try to teach, so you just like, you know, I just practice, and then later on probably sell these things or whatever. But
Art,
okay,
before we move on, since we're talking about art, speaking of writing, I'm trying to finish up this book project, and I actually uh, have a rough draft of a science fiction novel sitting in a box at my place, but I did get back to doing some artwork myself to kind of illustrate my own characters. Me and my brother, we went to drawing when we were um, younger, and so my brother sent me the Marvel Jack Kirby. You
okay,
familiar
Kurt.
with Jack Kirby?
Yes, I teach about it. Yes.
Okay, yeah. So he sent me the Marvel Jack Kirby art book. So I didn't realize that you guys are looking at me now. If you take the human face, the eyes are about halfway down, and they're kind of aligned with your ears.
Hmm.
And then they just broke down how your from your eyes to your mouth, that's about 2 eye lengths, and then from your mouth to your chin, that's about 2 more eye lengths.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize it. I started looking at everybody around me, and I said, "Wow, I never noticed that."
Yeah,
You
that's
know?
his formula. But sometimes some people are made a certain like kind of different than the norm. Like for example, that wouldn't work on Will Smith.
Oh,
If you see his face, all the top area is close together and everything is elongated and his ears are smaller.
okay.
You see what I'm saying? So if you did it like that, it'll make it you have to look at his pictures, you know.
Hmm.
I think his
Yeah.
face changed a little bit as he got older. It's getting a little longer, but
Hmm.
for the most part, we always use his example compared to someone like a Sean Connery or something like that. Um, but yeah, those things usually help though. Anyway, it helps you to get started, and most people do that with the face and the body. You know, the body they try to say it's 5 heads tall, 10 heads tall. You know,
Hmm.
whatever they want to use. You know, but yeah, man. I mean, one day hopefully you come up and we've been trying to get Charles to pull out a pencil, or whatever, but he only pulls out
Hmm.
the cigars. But because he draws too.
Oh, does he? Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. He's a comic book head. Yeah.
yeah. He sent me his work. I'm like, fool, you over here just sitting there talking about cognac and and cigar. Like, what about the pencil? So
Yep.
yeah, when I get to it, man, that's all right.
Yeah.
But
There's something very therapeutic about creating visual art, making music. Yeah, the arts are very, very important.
just to remind people, Leonardo da Vinci was pretty much doing what you were doing.
Hmm.
You know, he was mixing things, and he was considered an engineer and a chemist, just as much as a painter. So, and
Hmm.
I mean, this is I think this interview is very necessary because again, when we throw a profession in, it's almost like they typecast you in that. Not understanding you have other things that you do as well, probably even better.
Hmm.
The profession that we choose, just it pays the bills, and at
Hmm.
the same time, we work hard to get there.
Hmm.
We're gonna we're gonna chime into that.
Okay.
So it's gonna be now. We're gonna start really, peeling the layers.
All right.
How did you become Doctor? How did you become a doctor?
That's an interesting question. As I told you, I went to a Buffalo's lone technical high school, or should I say, the lone technical high school in Buffalo. Inanimate things shouldn't have ownership. That's my mom's grammar policing there. Shout out to Toya in the chat. Uh,
Yeah.
so I just stuck with the biological sciences in high school, in college. When I got to my HBCU, I remember, I don't think she'll mind me mentioning her, Dr. Sutton Haywood. She told us my first year at my HBCU, this was more so to my classmates because I was an A student. But she said, you all say you want to go to medical school, but you all don't have the slightest idea of what it takes to get into medical school or what it's going to take once you get there. So she said, I recommend that you all go to the library, pull out a book on the medical profession, read up on it, and see if that's what you really want to do.
Okay.
Because for those listening, many of my classmates, they weren't medical school material in terms of their grades at the undergraduate level. So if you're not excelling in your science coursework at your HBCU, you're gonna have a hard time getting into NYU medical school or Michigan medical school. Or so if you're coming from a small school, you got to really distinguish yourself early.
Okay. Before you go into that,
Yep.
what kept him from excelling? And from what you observed.
That's a good point. That's a good question. Um, their attitudes,
Okay.
their approach to their coursework, um, their reluctance to be coached and,
Hmm.
and to take the teaching and to take the mentoring. It was. You're in education. You know that there's a mentality out there sometimes that students should just be passed or students should just be given grades. Um, and there was a lot of that.
Okay.
There was a lot of pushback,
Okay.
as opposed to seeking to get more information, seeking to learn. Now, at that time, my HBCU, I think they've tightened it up, but at that time, they let a lot of characters in there.
Ooh.
You know, there were a lot of, and I'm not saying that to disparage my HBCU because it did a lot for me, but at that time, there were a lot of folks who got in there that I don't know could have gotten in anywhere else. But in modern times, the argument could be made that that's the purpose for our HBCUs now, to give chances to kids who maybe, can't go anywhere else.
Right. Okay. So as far as your journey, and please, you guys hit the like button, share, subscribe.
So going back to your question, so I don't know if my classmates did it, but I did. I went to the library, the Buffalo Public Library. I went home and I pulled the book and I said, you know what? I don't know if I want to do this. You have your schooling, then you have to do your residency. And the thing that stood out to me is I wouldn't hit my earning peak, whichever, until my late 30s, into my 40s. So I'm going to go into a lot of debt, and I'm not going to, and then depending upon the specialty you have, you're not going to be sleeping. But whatever you choose, you have to love it. It's important to love it because you're going to be doing that. So those are things that kind of made me say, you know what, I'm not sure that I want to do this. And so then the same professor, she asked me, that was the summer of 1996 or 97. Remember, she asked me, she said, what are you doing this summer? And my intention was to go back to Buffalo and to work security and to wait tables at the Golden Nugget, which was a bar / club for the grown and sexy crowd, for the older folks in Buffalo. So my intention was to just go back and work a job and make some money. And she said, no, you need to be doing something scientific with your summer. Fill out this application for the McNair program. You're cute, so he's frat. You know McNair. The McNair program was designed to explore. It was designed to expose underrepresented minorities to graduate education, research, and pursuing their doctorates. So that's how I got on that track. I have to credit Dr. Sutton Haywood for that. And that's one of the advantages. I'm not saying you can't get mentoring at a PWI, but at a HBCU, the one thing that they do have going for them, I shouldn't say that the one thing, but one of the major things HBCUs have going for them is the small class sizes. And if you take advantage of them, you can form relationships with your faculty, and they'll look out for you if you show promise.
Okay, so you're doing that the right way. Yeah, because like my son, I'm gonna choke him. He keeps to himself. I'm like, fool, you in college. You're supposed to be talking to your faculty.
Yep.
But
now, all right. So I want to add on to that. Keep in mind that on my mother's side of the family, which is who I spent most of my childhood around, there were no STEM professionals. There were no STEM professionals at any of the churches that we went to. So if Dr. Sutton Haywood, my professor at Johnson C. Smith, if she hadn't done what she had done, who knows where I'd be right now. So that, I just
want to hear that. Okay, can you repeat that one more time? The church and everything.
So in my family circle, on my mother's side, which is the side that I spent most of my childhood with, there were no STEM professionals, no researchers. The only medical doctor in my family was on my father's side, and I barely saw him because my parents split, and I only saw my father once a year. So there were no STEM professionals in my family circle. There were no STEM professionals in the church we went to. We spent a lot of time there, like I'm sure a lot of folks in the audience have. So unless Dr. Sutton Haywood did what she did my second year at my HBCU, who knows where I'd be right now. It was her kind of saying, no, you can't go home and wait tables and be a security guard. You need to be doing something scientific. You have the aptitude for that and the ability based upon your coursework.
Now, I hope Tashina Arnold is listening to this, because you just gave an answer to her question.
Mhm.
Right. And anybody, I mean, anything else inspired you? Because I know I was on your panel talking about that, but was there anything else that inspired you to pursue this profession?
You know, in terms of where I landed right now doing regulatory affairs in the federal government, this is not where I plan to be. What I wanted to do when I was in Michigan was to go work in big pharma. You know, I wanted to work for Pfizer or Merck or Shearing Plow at that time or GlaxoSmithKline. But what happens is in the sciences, when you're a student and you want to make that jump to the private sector,
Hmm.
you need to have a skill set that they're looking for. The companies, they're not going to hire you and train you. You need to have that skill set that they're looking for. So um, I did acquire a considerable skill set during my graduate research, but I'm going to talk some science here really quickly for everybody. I wanted to go into drug metabolism and pharmacokinetics. If you look at a drug company, all of them have a DMPK division. That's drug metabolism and pharmacokinetics.
Mm,
So at that time, and that's all dealing with, I'll drop a link in the chat. That's all dealing with how your body metabolizes and handles a given molecule, because a drug is a molecule, right? Designed to treat cancer or heart disease or uh, 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 high cholesterol, whatever. It's a
mm,
molecule. So at that time, the skill that those scientists needed was working with a mass spectrometer, or a mass spec for short. So if you had that experience and you knew how to conduct pharmacokinetic studies, then you were pretty much golden. If you didn't know those, if you didn't have those skill sets, then you had to figure out how to do something else. So when I went to do my postdoc, that was the skill set I was after.
mhm.
And I worked on that for about a year. And then my postdoctoral advisor bought an inhalation system for rodents. And he said, I want you to set it up. So for the last part of my postdoc, I set up our airway inhalation toxicity system for rodents. And that's what got me hired into my current capacity, because they were looking for someone with that experience and that skill set. I'm going to drop a link in the chat, one about drug metabolism and the other one about inhalation toxicology. Go ahead.
Wow, that's deep, man. For those people that are listening, please hit the like button, share, and subscribe to Dr. Dunbar's channel that's in the description box. Um, please show your love and appreciation, and also hit that Cash App for Dr. Dunbar that's at the top of the chat box as well. So now, and I heard you speak about this before. When you were speaking about this, I'm like, damn, that sounds like my mom. How did your parents play a part in your development with this?
Okay, so that's an excellent question. That's a very very good question. So my mother, her background is actually in writing. So it's funny that I realized that oftentimes, to some degree, you become what your parents are. So
Hmm.
my mom was a writer. Science involves writing. My 5 to 9, my business, that in large part involves writing. So um, both parents were college educated. Both stressed education,
Hmm.
even though again I didn't realize how to excel at my coursework until I got to the undergraduate level. But there were always books in the house. We had an encyclopedia set or two, and me and my brother read comic books. And then once I saw Michael Jordan hit the shot, I was getting NBA yearbooks every year and just reading about where all the players went to school and how tall they were and what their scoring averages were. And so I just started reading. So we were always reading. And, my father, I think my father He's a retired educator, and I think his undergraduate degree was in physics, and then he went and got his master's in education. My mother's undergraduate degree, I think, was in social services. But my father, I think one of his major contributions was, and I'm sure you've heard this, was the study. This is an older study because he told it to me about 30 years ago. But um, Asian kids study an average of 6 hours after school per week, probably more. The white kids averaged about 4 hours a week after school studying and doing their homework, and Black and Hispanic kids spend 2 hours after school doing their homework and studying. So at an early age, I remember me and my father were talking, and I said, "Well, Asian kids are smarter than everyone else." No, they're not. They spend more time on it than everyone else. They're not worried about playing basketball and video games and doing the latest dances. They're doing their schoolwork. That's why at my high school I saw them on the honor roll every quarter.
Right.
So those were their influences.
Yeah.
So and I think that again underscores the importance of having that male sphere there, because my mother didn't tell me that. She made other contributions, but that's a key. It didn't register right away in my teen brain, but as I progressed and I thought about it, and I said, you know what, if I just spend my time doing my work and doing those things, then I'll get some it'll bear fruit.
Click.
Yep.
Yeah, I've been hearing that. I mean, I met Jawanza Kunjufu twice,
Mm-hmm.
and he did that same lecture, um, and um, and people still didn't get it. I'm talking about the students that were listening. I was sitting there like, I don't know. I mean, that hunger, that's what I always scratching my head over all these years of teaching. Where the fact that you just simply even just do half of the work, as far as homework, you'd be a lot further than just doing nothing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because the culture in these schools, their religious beliefs does not include homework. So like me, I just try to just make sure everything. Instead of just trying to force it on them, because I can't sit there and say, "Hey, you got to do the homework when you get home," because I don't live with them.
Mm-hmm.
What I try to do is just say, "Hey, whatever you didn't finish in class, just do it at home." That's the best I was able to contribute. But even that's getting that's becoming a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But we're gonna move on here. Again, you guys, please hit that like button, share, subscribe to Dr. Dunbar's channel in the description box, and hit the cash app. Go ahead, brother. Doc.
All right, I was just gonna say, I think culture definitely plays a role, because I don't know, as a young African American teen, I was thinking about playing basketball, and I was thinking about there's just so many other things we're thinking about besides being honor roll students. There's just so many other influences on us, um, besides what we're there to be for. I mean, what we're there for,
Right.
which is setting up our futures. We get so caught up in you know
Activities.
and social pressures, and what sneakers so and so's wearing. Oh, he knows how to talk to the girls. I don't.
Yep.
There's just so much, especially for young men. There's so many distractions for us.
Oh man, it's even worse today. Now, how did your peers treat you after your academic achievement?
Well, again, I made the jump in undergrad. And you mentioned O'Shea earlier, and one of the things O'Shea says is that going to an HBCU is like going to a big high school. So in a lot of ways, going to my HBCU did feel like going to high school for the second time. That's not to disparage it or anything, but it was a small school. There were some high school like dynamics there, and I think I don't know. I don't think I got particularly a lot of respect for it. I think I was one of the few black males who was excelling in terms of my coursework, but socially, I just don't think I got a lot of respect and notoriety there for that.
And what about people that you went to high school with? Did that put a wedge, or did drift you guys further apart?
Well, at that time, the way high school was for me, there were, I wasn't I was a mediocre student in high school, and so when I learned to excel, everyone had kind of moved away and started their lives. So I think that people were impressed at my 10-year reunion that I was in graduate school doing a PhD, and I think that after I finished, I think people were impressed. But yeah, it didn't cause any friction in any way.
Cool. Okay. Now, going further back, let me see. Okay. Now, this is going to be a fun question. We spoke about this earlier.
Mm-hmm.
How did Anwar Dunbar approach women in social life differ from the Dr. Dunbar?
I was thinking about that question this morning when I was out walking. So going back to what happens when there are no men around and you're a young boy and you don't have anyone to model. My youth was hard because I didn't have a social confidence. I got that term from Dr. Robert Glover, author of No More Mr. Nice Guy. I recommend that book to most young men if you're raised mostly by your mother. But I didn't have a social confidence. I was a shy kid. Didn't know the first thing about talking to girls, and that went into my 20s. And as far as after I earned my PhD, you know what? I never really led with that. And there are several reasons for that. One of the main reasons is going back to my father, whom for a lot of my life, I really trusted his guidance and his wisdom. As you get older, you start to see certain things and you start to question certain things your parents tell you. And then you realize, okay, your parents are people. They have flaws, they have issues, they have hangups, and they're not perfect. My father, at times, can be a little paranoid, can see the world in a different way. And one of the things he told me when I moved with him for my postdoc was, I wouldn't tell people you're a doctor.
Okay.
The reason he said that is because they're going to expect you to drive a certain kind of car. They're going to expect you to dress a certain way. They're going to expect you to have a certain amount of money. Some guys may want to fight you out of jealousy, and I've learned, Art, that there is people are enamored with the title of doctor. They don't know what your doctorate is in.
Yeah.
They don't know what your background is in. They don't know what you're a doctor of. They just assume because you're a doctor that you have money and that you're doing well. That's not always the case.
Mm-hmm.
So, and my mentor, who took an interest in me after I moved to DC, he told me, well, for one thing, your father, he sounds like he's envious of you. My mom said, your father sounds like he's jealous of you. My mentor said, it sounds like he's envious. And there's no malice attached to envy. It's just wishing that maybe you had that opportunity yourself. So I could see that. But you have your degree, you have your academic accomplishment, but I didn't necessarily feel different once I defended because my money wasn't up. I wasn't in a good place financially, as a lot of students aren't when they finish.
Right.
And again, I just didn't have that social confidence, when I earned my PhD. So that didn't come until later. And this is part of my message too. I was in large part, quote unquote, unfinished. For those of you who don't know, I did do some work with the image guy. You guys know who the image guy is. I didn't know a damn thing about fashion, didn't respect it, didn't know a damn thing about fragrances, didn't know a damn thing about um, shoes and eating at 5-star restaurants. These are all things that you would assume a doctor would know.
Right.
Not necessarily. I didn't, I had to learn how to do quote unquote nice things because that's not the background I come from. People say, "Well, how do you not know what fine dining is and what a 5-star restaurant is?" Well, when you come from a family that's about saving money and living modestly, that's kind of how you see the world. So there's a jump when you attain a high level of education that socially you're expected to make.
Hmm. Okay. Now the other question, thinking back in your journey, can as far as your judgment, what have you done right, and what are the things that have you done wrong? Making friends, risk investments, family. You know, I mean, you can just take your pick. You don't have to be a fully detailed, but something that you want us to know.
Yeah, what have I done right and what have I done wrong? Well, I think that I did, in terms of my education, I did, when I needed to. I did put my head down, do my work, and I, got my degrees and those kinds of things. Socially, socially, you as an adult in a quote unquote NFL city, in a big city like DC, you have to learn how to be social. You have to get out, go to things. You'll meet people when you're out. You'll meet people at and out doesn't always mean going to the bar. It could mean going to the park. It could be joining a bike club. It could be going to the gym. It could be any number of things. You meet people everywhere. Um,
So networking was a good choice.
Networking. When your money allows it, getting out of the house. That was one of the main lessons that the image guy taught us that one weekend I went with him is you guys gotta life happens outside of your home. And there was a stretch where I was repairing my finances. When I was in graduate school, this is funny. I started reading the Rich Dad Poor Dad books, and I
Mhm.
said, "Wow, you can get rich. You can like not have to go to the office if you buy real estate and you get stocks and all these different things. And why why didn't I do this earlier?" So when I started my federal career, um, I tried to get into the real estate investing game.
Mm.
And for reasons I probably won't go into now because it'll take too long, I got into a big debt hole. So for about 7 to 8 years, I was paying off debt. So that impacts the things you do. It impacts the amount of discretionary spending you have. I didn't have a car for about 8 years because I was trying to save the money and pay down debt.
Mm.
So if I thought I learned things through that experience that I wouldn't have learned if I hadn't have tried that. But learning how to invest and make money outside of your daytime job, whatever it is you're doing, there's going to be a bit of a learning curve, and you don't want to overwhelm your finances with debt doing that.
Wow.
I think that a lot of us, particularly in our generation, the Gen Xers and those coming after us, I think a lot of us struggled with gender roles, who's supposed to do what, how much.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to try to be discreet here, but yeah, I think a lot of folks are confused about getting married, what marriage is, what where you're supposed to be financially when going into a marriage. As a man, how much am I supposed to take care of everything? If she has a job, should what's the minimum for her to do if she has her own career? I think a lot of system wide, generationally, a lot of folks are confused about that today. There were a lot of things I didn't understand about that whole thing. I was engaged at one point, that didn't work out. So there was a lot of mistakes made, a lot of figuring things out on my own. A lot of, I think that the the world that my mom tried to raise us for doesn't exist anymore. I remember, I went back to Buffalo, and every time I come back, my mother's a very spiritual woman, so she likes to do this prayer. And I remember she said one of the things she prayed was, she said, I raised my sons to be upstanding, fine young men. Okay. Well, society and with some of the dynamics in our community, how are fine, upstanding young men viewed and treated and perceived?
Mm-hmm.
That's a rhetorical question. People can chew on that and
Uh-huh.
come to your conclusions. But so I'm saying that to say that I think she raised us for a certain thing, thinking a certain thing, but didn't quite understand the societal changes that were happening around all of us.
Wow. Now, I'm glad you went in. That's why I had to ask, because people doesn't understand the lives that we have and what we, things that we have to go through, through this profession or any of these professions. And I definitely, and for those people that are here, please hit the like button and please share the live stream and please subscribe to Dr. Dunbar's channel in the description box and hit that cash app up top. I appreciate you guys coming through up here. Now, did your social life and relationships interfere with your profession?
Did my social life well?
Did you like mix the wrong stuff because you had a hangover?
Well, our what I'll say is this is that if you're with the wrong person
Ooh,
and you're stressed out
ooh.
and you're in and out of drama all the time, that's going to affect your work life. It's going to affect your ability to do science or whatever it is you're trying to do. And I was fortunate to finish my PhD because I got involved with someone when I was there, and it got pretty chaotic at times for numerous reasons. Number one of the main ones, I didn't have a self love for myself, so I was pretty much putting up with any and everything. I didn't know that I could get out of an unhealthy situation. And I thought my perception of love and relationships was all about serving the other person,
Okay.
with little regard for myself. So there were a couple times when I could have washed out of my PhD program. I'll
Was
just
this
leave
person
that
the same
there.
profession as you?
Sorry.
Was this person the same profession as you?
No, 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 no. She was in a master's program. I mean, and there's a lot that I won't get into here just for the sake of keeping things simple, but she was in a master's program, and she was on track to go into the financial sector for Ernst and Young.
Okay.
Ernst and Young.
Wow.
But but you gotta there's something in the image guy, as much as people can't stand him. One of the things that I thought was very, very valuable that he said that I wished I had known in my 20s was that when you're in your 20s, You need to put your head down, focus on your work, focus on your craft. The other stuff, worry about that later. If you meet someone who genuinely has your best interests at heart, that's one thing. But focus on your craft. You're probably, unless you're an NBA ball player or an NFL, you're probably not going to be a millionaire, anytime soon. So just focus on your craft, sharpen your craft, get good at your craft, and then let things work themselves out. You're not supposed to be, if you're in a PhD program, you're not supposed to be whining and dining. You're not supposed to be in a taking someone to 5-star restaurants or telling them you don't have to bring any money. I've got this trip paid for. You're not there for that. And I think, and that's the other thing. I think a lot of us as Black men, when we're young, we judge ourselves based upon how much money we have, because that's how society in large part judges us. That's how our women in large part judge us. And so I didn't always see the importance of what I was doing when I was in graduate school, which is a shame. I didn't really understand that I was doing something great. I was just doing something. I knew I'd get a PhD at the end, but I didn't understand the importance of it, and thus I didn't know how to defend it.
Now, I'm not sure if you'd be able to answer this, but did she support your endeavors with this, or?
What I will say is that I think she she liked that I would have the title of doctor. I think she liked what I could potentially do for her one day. But I think that was her motivation. And I think that she, for, again, there are a lot of things that I'm not going to get into. There were issues and backstories and stuff like that, but I don't think she was always thinking about me and what it would take for me to succeed. So if you're doing something like that, getting a PhD or anything meaningful, make sure the other person is there and has your best interests at heart.
That's what I was establishing.
Yeah.
We on this journey, there's going to be somebody that's going to know what you're about and know they see your potential before we do for some reason. I don't know what it is, but sometimes they have different motives behind it, like Lady Macbeth, for example. So you get that thing going, and you don't know until like years and years afterwards. So sound like you kind of dodged a bullet there.
I did, and you just, sometimes you just don't know what you don't know, and you're in relationships and you're dealing with things because you just don't know. You know that my mom always told me that relationships are work, and they are. But I think each of us has to make the determination as to how much is too much. Is this an unhealthy situation? Is this not going to get any better? Does the person even give a damn about me? Those are all things that you got to make determinations for yourself about.
Man, I found it the hard way. But yeah, you speaking the truth. For those people, please hit the like button, share, and subscribe. How are we doing on time, Doc?
I'm good. All right, I can hang out for a little while longer.
Okay, so I got a couple more questions, and then I'm going to invite the other people to kind of expand on some of the things you spoke about.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever faced any kind of adversity as a Black man in your profession?
That's a really good question. What I'm learning, I've been in my current position for 13 years in the federal government. I was potentially brought in, and I was happy to get hired at that time because I was living with my father, and I think he was ready for me to go, and I was ready to go. So I was just happy to get out of there.
Right.
But I think I was brought in, from what I'm hearing, because the woman at the time she was scrutinized as being a little racist.
Oh,
So I think she needed to show, no, I'm not. Here, I've hired this guy. He's black. He's a black male. And so what do you guys think about that? So, and I'm grateful to her for hiring me um, back in 2008. But since then, when you're working in an organization, a government agency, you see people getting promoted, you see people ascending, you start to see the trends.
yes.
And I think that, well, there are murmurings that promoting black men isn't necessarily the priority
Mm, okay. So you
in
do
my
see it.
organization.
Okay. Wow. That's yeah, 'cause that's something that's probably another live stream in itself.
Hmm. And I'm being discreet about that. I mean, I'm sure no one from the job is watching this, but
Right.
just but it's consistent with what's happening society wide. It's consistent, I
Now,
think. Anyway.
now the thing is, do you think that your status separates you from the everyday brother? And if so, how?
You know what? I would say no. No, I mean, I don't. I would hate for uh, other black men to look at me. I mean, obviously, when they hear he's a doctor, has a PhD, they, you think certain things. But I like, I have a sports channel. I'm a bit of a geek guy. Uh, I'm like everybody else.
Okay.
So I deal with a lot of the same things. So, uh, career wise, there are probably very, very few black men with PhDs in the biological sciences. So in that regard, I'm different than the norm. But in terms of everything else, no, I'm not really different. And I think uh, when people hear me talk, I think we form opinions about each other when we hear each other talk and articulate.
Mm-hmm.
I've dealt with that.
Okay.
Uh, my godson lives in Prince George's County, and he's told me that I come across as being very proper. But and that used to bother me. I have this joke. I told BGS, I think on one of Roger's uh, panels. I went out. This is years and years ago. I went out with this woman. She was she was an AK, and she told me I didn't have any swag.
Oh. Ooh.
Yeah, yeah. Obama's got swag. You don't.
Ooh.
Because I thought about it, I said, wait a minute, I gotta articulate myself like him. But no, no, he got the Denzel walk. He's got the suave demeanor. So, but no, I don't think I'm different than the everyday brother.
Okay. Um, and a couple of more questions to bring people up, but this one here is this probably I think this is another panel in itself too. Do you work with other Dr. Dunbars, meaning other black professionals like yourself?
Professionals, yes. Scientists, well, in my division, there are two other younger men now, and I'm trying to mentor them and kind of keep their eyes open on what's going on, and you know why certain moves are made and what things are happening beneath the surface. But I do work with there are other black men in my office, but there are only two other black male scientists. Geez, I think,
Hmm.
yeah, and our no. There's one older gentleman, but in terms of the actual scientists, there's only like four of us
Wow.
across 3 to 4 divisions.
Okay. So now, do you think that's enough, or do you think we need more? And if
There should be
so,
more. There
so I
should be
mean,
more.
how would more benefit, your profession? Like,
How would more benefit my profession?
how would it benefit you?
Me personally?
Yeah, if you think it'll benefit you at all, or how would that go? Because
You
usually
know what?
people are on their own island. You know what I'm saying?
Sorry?
So usually people are on their own island when they have the situation. But if you have more, what would be the benefits?
Well, I think if there's truly an interest in diversity, then your workplace needs to reflect that. You know what? I'm fine. Personally, as long as I have money coming in and I can take care of myself, I'm fine. But I think that if diversity is what we're shooting for, and if we're really shooting to give everyone a fair chance to succeed, then I think that the results need to show that. Um, and the results don't always show that.
Okay. So last question: Are you in position to help the common brother?
I would say yes. It depends on how. One of the reasons, again, I started my science channel was for visibility. Maybe one day I can be a Neil deGrasse Tyson science influencer uh, type of guy, and I think that there's more value I can add to the world than sitting in a cubicle registering chemicals. So I think that part of my job is to be a conduit for the sciences, and getting. That's why for my science content, and arguably that's my most important channel. It doesn't. I don't have the watch hours yet to monetize it. I'm up above 1,000, but the stuff we talk about over there, yeah, it's some really really important stuff. And I think that somehow our people need to get more involved in the stems.
Okay. So I got some experts in the background that want to
Okay.
come up.
Okay.
And before I bring them up, what kind of advice would you leave, for the youth that do want to achieve? What kind of advice would you leave with them?
Uh, read, be curious, seek knowledge, seek information. Don't be afraid to be different. You're going to have to figure out how to fit in with your own people, and then you're going to have to figure out how to navigate the world in general. So I think we call that code switching.
Okay.
But yeah, the world is an unforgiving place, and knowledge is power. A lot of power is locked away in books. So, and just don't be afraid to be different. I always think about the leadership parable. Be a leader, not a follower. Sometimes being a leader is just going your own way and not being afraid to separate from the group. It doesn't necessarily mean you're leading a legion of 300 or 50,000 people. Sometimes it's just going your own way. So, and saying, okay, I see you guys are going off a cliff. I'm not going that way. Or I have an interest in the sciences. I'm going to pursue that career or whatever. Be a leader. Be a leader. Don't be a follower. Don't be afraid to go your own way.
Okay. All right. So
And also, because I talk about this on my original channel, consider the cost of your education before signing on the dotted line.
that's what we're definitely going to get into. So
Think about what the economy needs. The economy dictates who's going to be employed um, on the back end of your training, whatever that is. It's not going to be. You might like whatever it is you're going to study, you might like that, but think about, is there going to be a job for that on the other end? And also think about, think about, think beyond working for someone else. Think about how to take your skills and make your own money. Be free.
All right. I appreciate you coming through, but we have Mr. Ray Alexander and we got JB in the building. Hello, gentlemen.
What's happening, man? How you doing?
All right, all right. So you guys have any questions for Dr. Dunbar before we get going with the questions for everyone else?
Man, I was hyped. Brother was spitting game. I mean, he was really read. That's important. He was telling them to read, read, read. That's very important. To be curious, to look at things that other people aren't looking at. Look at water resources management. Look at, you see how California is being drained of water and all the problems they have. How do we solve it? Who are those youth who understand climatology and meteorology and all these things with geology, with rock?
Oh, your reception, brother JB.
Very important.
Okay.
You might keep going in and out, homie.
Just a little bit, but that last part, we lost your last part.
No, I said all those things to think about are very important. Those are life-sustaining things. Because when you start talking about water and soil, you're talking about agriculture. You're talking about fruits and vegetables. You're talking about what type of animals live on there. If you're dealing with water, you're dealing with fish and aquaculture, rice, and all sorts. But it all goes together. This is the circle of life, and how we play an instrument in that, where we may look at it and somehow be mad, or I'm not going into that, or I don't want to be about that. This is the wave of the future. If you see TikTok and all these young brothers and different things now showing people how to plant, how to just cut something off of one branch and to put it in some water and do some things, let it get roots, and then put it in the soil and watch it grow and eat the fruits of your labor. That's the same thing in business. That's the same thing in engineering. That's the same thing in entrepreneurship. Yet we don't just get it in college. All that stuff starts normally before we get to college. And you have to start reading and just keep exposing your mind to things that you never heard of or you never thought was possible, and make them possible.
Okay. And thank you. And Brother Alexander, you had something to mention.
Okay, thanks for having me on as well. And I did want to ask Dr. Dunbar if he has seen very many Black millennial men, PhDs in the sciences, being recruited or brought into the federal scientific research.
Okay, how you doing, Ray? Let's see. I don't know. Once again, I'm in regulatory affairs, so I know who they hire when I see the new people come to my office. So I don't know how actively my office and my division are recruiting Black male scientists. Well, maybe my next gig will be involved with that, but I think we need to just create more, encourage more to get into these areas. Yeah.
Now, after the questions that I was asking Dr. Dunbar, we know this for a fact, but I'm just going to ask a question, just get it out here, and please do not be afraid to hurt anybody's feelings. Why is there a big pushback from Black men, from Black women, from non-Black people when it comes to Black men going to college? We get it all the way around. Why is there such a pushback? Anybody want to tackle that? Because basically, I believe Dr. Dunbar is a product of college education. Why is there so much of a pushback?
Well, I'll go first. I wasn't aware that there was a pushback per se for that. So I have to admit that I'm not unfamiliar with a pushback for Black men going to college.
Okay. Anyone else want to tackle this?
In a large scale way.
Okay.
I mean, I know that I've heard that Black girls are encouraged to a larger degree to succeed at school at an early age, but I didn't, in terms of encouraging Black men from going to college. I'm not familiar.
I'd like to add some comment to that as well.
Yeah.
I think there's I've heard that the lack of encouragement could be perceived as a pushback as well. I do think that there's a fear and a lack of understanding of the type of work that you have to do to produce engineers, scientists, physicians, surgeons at that level, the amount of the work that parents have to do. And I think that when we look at the macro, we're looking at what the schools are not doing. But when we look at the micro, we're not looking at what the parents are doing. There's a book called Top of the Class, how Asian Americans raise top tier students. And Dr. Dunbar talked a little bit about the amount of studying that would go into that. But I live in a suburb that's 20% Asian, so I can look at this from the research, and anecdotally, there's a lot, they kind of live for their children's academic success. They're in violin lessons, they're in art. And so you're cultivating kids' skill from a young age. So not the new thing, it's not only STEAM, because art develops a lot of skills. So the part becomes is that the parents have to be willing to put in that long-term effort to read to their children every day over years, to monitor their development, to have goals for them, to help them reach those goals. And so people, I see Art, and maybe others may say this, we see that people do that in sports. If they have a 6-year-old and they think he might be a LeBron, they will hire a coach for this, a coach for that. But there's not necessarily a tutor, and Dr. Dunbar has been a tutor as well, to help with people manage their mathematics, science, and you have to expose these children to that early in life. We're talking about elementary school. We make sure that they're not just reading at grade level, that they're reading above grade level. And so I think there's a fear that people are going to look at poor parenting as a major reason. And also, I would say, unfortunately, some people don't even want to pay for their kids to go to school. I thought it was very much a great blessing when Dr. Dunbar said that his mother paid for the first 2 years of college. That's something that's still very rare. That really helped him. And then he got a scholarship for the last 2 years. He got the McNair scholarship. But a lot of people want to be parents. They want the benefits of sex, but not the responsibilities of parenting, because it takes a lot to give these kids what they need to be successful. And it's easy to blame a school system. It's easy to blame teachers, but people don't want to blame poor parenting. And that's just something kind of touching on that. Does anyone have anything to kind of say on that?
Yeah, I definitely would like to say, first and foremost, the question was, what's happening to Black men, and are they being taken out of the system? And absolutely 100% yes. Right now, we do know that 90% of all African American students attend college at a community college. Of those students who are going to community college, 21% of African American males have not shown up during this COVID pandemic. 21%. That is a very large number. That's a fifth. And then when you start thinking that's the vast majority of where our African American males are going to prepare to go to a 4-year institution, yeah, something's wrong. So just that. But yes, there's tons of programs, there's tons of things that help students get into college, but it has to make meaning. It's like we can explain all day how much of a benefit it's going to be to them and how great they're going to be. But we have to be able to show them how to get there, help them get there, and be able to guide them when all the nuances that they've never seen or heard of become present in order to meet them, situate their learning, and so you can both make meaning of what's going on and be a guide to one another, an elder and a youth.
Okay.
I want to
Go ahead.
piggyback off of something that Ray said. I just dropped a link to an article that I wrote after my dad retired. And my dad taught in one of the lower 2 districts in New York State's capital region. And I remember when I wrote this essay, because I saw my dad come home frustrated a lot when I lived with him. My dad was getting blamed for the performance of his students. I think the principal and the parents thought, well, you should just push my kids through the science course. And my dad's old school. He said, no, your kids should earn the grades that they get. And I remember when I showed my dad the rough draft of this essay, he kind of looked at it and he kind of like deliberated, because he was afraid, I think, to say what he really thought. And one of the things that he said was, parents are not what they used to be. At least for the kids he was teaching, the parents are not the same. They feel like the school should do everything, right? And he said, I feel like we make progress with the kids, and then they go home and they unlearn everything we taught them.
Wow.
So we're reteaching and we're reteaching and we're reteaching. And he said these kids don't see their parents reading anything at all. So I think that's significant. And I also think, piggybacking off of what Ray said, I think that for this population subgroup we're talking about, I don't think parenting is seen the same way in all instances. I volunteered at the Arlington Planetarium in Northern Virginia, and I think one of the things, the group I was volunteering with, I think they wanted me to be on the board. They wanted me to be on the board to bring more minorities over to the planetarium. And during our events, all you would see were white families, Asian families, you see parents bringing their kids, but you see very, very few, if any, parents bringing their kids. I don't know if that's because where the planetarium was situated, or if we as a people just weren't interested in astronomy and aerospace. But I think that, and going back to the tutoring, that those particular parents whose kids I was tutoring, those parents had the foresight to say, you know what, Johnny or Jenny, they've got to pass GChem, they got to pass AP chemistry to go to college. So they were afraid for their kids, and they set the money aside to pay for a tutor.
Now, the reason why I brought that first question up, for those people that haven't really stepped on high school campuses or even community college campuses, for the most part, there is a level of discouragement when somebody wants to reach high. There is a level of that. They don't just tell you don't go to college. It's not like that, but it's almost in the same. It's almost a more subtle way of what Malcolm X went through with his teacher, when y'all know that story, right? So not only is like the Malcolm X, but the alternatives are so interesting. Like, go explore the world, go have another leash on life. This whole college thing is blah blah blah. They're very lackadaisy. And I'm talking about your own people. I'm talking about your counselors. I'm talking about your administration, and some of your teachers are subtly. And the thing is, parents are not even hearing this conversation between them and the student, right? So, why wouldn't you be surprised when you're thinking that your child wants to reach high, but at the same time they're like, well, I don't know, Mom, I just want to explore the world. They're telling you things that you know that you didn't teach them, but they're like, hey, I want to go ahead and, skydiving. Like, how do you come up with skydiving? Right? But that's why I had that question for those people in the chat that's like, oh, never heard any discouragement. Yes, they are being discouraged. But JB, you wanted to chime in? Uh-oh, you're on mute. I think you're on mute. You're still on mute.
No, I'm good. No, I'm good, man. I was just trying to make sure I was, driving and kept my eye on the road while I was pressing the unmute button.
Okay, so I'm gonna go on to the next question here, and this is
Art.
Yes, sir.
Can I say something? Mr. Coakley said something interesting there. He says, "I am an aerospace engineer. My grandfather took me to the planetarium, and my parents kept me in the library after school." I want to say that everyone, again, there are whole communities who don't know what MIT is, who don't know. I mean, you know what Georgia Tech is.
Schools,
you know
Colorado
what Georgia Tech is because.
So he's adding on to you. He's adding on to what you're saying. Go ahead, Doctor.
Okay, I mean, you know what Georgia Tech is and what Virginia Tech are because they have well-known basketball teams and football teams, but some place like MIT, Scripps,
Caltech.
Caltech. You have whole communities who don't know what that is. I didn't hear about MIT until I got to graduate school because my graduate advisor went there. The whole people who don't know, the whole communities of people who don't know what the James Webb Telescope is. As me and Art talked about, there are Black folks who don't know who Neil deGrasse Tyson is, and that's not a shot against those people, but we're truly living in different worlds here. And if you're locked out of these things and you don't know, you just don't know. You know what Coachella is, but you just don't know what some of these higher level foundational things are, and so the kids won't know either. And I know that I'll just say Dr. Watkins has been critical of certain content creators, but when he talks about that our kids know how to do the nay and all the other latest dances, but they don't know anything else, I think he's right. Well, certain segments of our kids.
Yeah, if I could say, and I wanted to add one thing I do with our students, and I work with middle school and high school students, is when I work with them to try to tell them to go to college or to do anything, I try to make meaning of it, not just like tell them or show them the college stuff, but I'm doing a program right now. We call it Boats, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. We're going to put them on a yacht. We're going to show them all the things that go with boats and the boating industry and water and all that stuff. Then we're going to put them on. We're going to take them to the airport. We're going to talk to them about the airplanes. We're going to let the kids utilize the simulators that are there to, if you can play X, Y, A, B video game, well, here, let me give you a life. Let me give you a plane. Give them experiences, the wow factor, as we say it. And then when we're going to go on Metrolink. We're going to go downtown. We're going to go see a Tupac or the Broad Museum in LA. So we're doing, and in going by Metrolink, we'll have someone on the train talking to us about all the careers, the engineers and all the things with trains and jobs and all that. And once we get off, if you know anything about LA, it's in the heart of poverty, the train station. So then we have to walk to the bougie side or the bourgeois side of LA to the museums and to let those students have an experience on why we need engineers, why we need better transportation and housing systems. But we give it to them in with our protection. And the last thing we do is we go to a car factory. It's an electrical factory, Fisker, and We let them understand the future of electrical cars and how it's in their own backyard, which they may not know about. But we call it boat, trains, plane, and that's how we just make it happen instead of trying to, we do it.
Brother Ray?
Well, I think that a part of it, as I said, is like we're looking at a lot of times we come on and talk about the macro issues. What are the institutions, the impact of institutions from American society? What are the school systems? One of the things that many parents can do is go and be a part of school boards, run for school boards, and also make sure that these schools have return to having shop and tech careers right in high school, and let children, kids be able to choose that, and that they have a variety of things. So right now, I think as what we're looking at, because we have a laissez-faire society, when these kids, the parents that do the most for their kids will get the results under that system. So right now, we'll need to have people, we'll need to really focus on the importance of parents really being good parents, on reading to their children, monitoring their children's academic development. And as Dr. Dunbar was talking about his father's frustrations, you hear that from a lot of teachers. A lot of these parents want to outsource everything. They want everyone else to be the mentor to their children. They want everyone else to take off their Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon to do everything for their kids, not understanding that those people have a life. So it's a deep issue, but I think that we can deal with the macro. I'm sorry, we can deal with the micro as far as what parents are doing with their children. That are they taking this seriously? And because their children will fall behind and suffer, and our society is becoming more conservative. A lot of the things that they got away with may not be the case. If you're looking at the trend of the society moving to the right, a lot of these laws for a lot of these crimes, once a lot of times when you get a liberal president in, right after that you'll get an ultra conservative. They're predicting a red wave this fall as far as it's possible the Republicans will retake the House and the Senate. And then in 2024, they may take the presidency. Already in most of the red states, there are draconian laws. So a lot of these neglected young men who are not learning to read at grade level, they're more than likely not going to get away with. They may increase. They might not only just have 3 strikes, they might not have life, but they may have 40-year mandatory sentences. And they may they used to build prisons based on the lack of reading levels of the people that they noticed by the 3rd grade. If certain demographic groups, and they're going to put those prisons in areas that support other populations, because incidentally, a lot of those prison jobs have good benefits. So they're locking people up and caring for them rather than investing in kids. So we need to really have a parenting alert. And I did put in the chat that book. It's a little bit better in my view than the Tiger Mom. It's called Top of the Class, How Asian Parents Raise High Achieving Students and How You Can Too. And it's not a condemning type book. It's just showing what they've done, the amount of work on that. So we really need to look on that and how to do that, because we've got to encourage these children, but we've got to make sure these parents do their jobs.
Okay.
I think, and that's the uncomfortable part about some of this, is that ultimately you're going to lead back to a certain place. And, well, ultimately it leads you back to a certain place. I think Jared has a really good comment there. He said, my graduate advisor has asked me, how can we attract other Black men to our field, agronomy/agriculture? I have no clue, since most people I know do not fully understand what agriculture is. How about that?
And welcome, Engineering Cannabis.
Hey.
And I'm not sure if JB is coming back, because I think he was probably in a bad area. But going back to this thing, because and that's why I have Ray and JB. JB is my mentor, like my mentor and guru in the frat. So he's been working with in this what do you call it? in this. He's almost like another Ray in a way, but he's very proactive with black boys becoming black men in through education. He's huge on that. I might even have a one on one with him as well. But the overall thing is, just from our outlook, do we have enough black boys in higher education? Do we have enough?
Um, I'll answer that question with probably no, there isn't. And again, the reason why is, again, I agree with Dr. Dunbar. The association part with we need more people who, again, like Dr. Dunbar, who's a doctor, and in other in different STEM fields. We need to have people like that associated with boys and minority boys and girls, basically learning from them. I grew up. I'm in my 30s. When I was in my youth, when I was in 15, 16, my parents were, when I wanted to major in, when I wanted to be an architect, my parents didn't understand whether that field was um, profitable. So they had to contact people they knew and ask questions and say, hey, is this career path lucrative for him to go into? And all of them advised and said, hey, no, he can go into other STEM fields like chemical engineering, civil engineering. And these were based on communities and association people who were architects, who were industrial engineers, chemical engineers. So that association piece is missing, and I think it's missing more in the community. We need more of that in that community. And again, even in college right now, the enrollment for STEM fields is low for the African American community.
Mm-hmm.
In engineering, when I was in the engineering school, you saw more of the the Asians, even and I went to a HBCU. You saw more of the Asians, the Indians, and the Africans graduate more than the African American our African American counterparts. We saw that even in graduate school. When I went to graduate school, there were more, again, Africans and Asians graduating, and these were HBCU schools with, again, scholarships, grants, and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that notion, and then now the notion more of now the notion of college is now shifting away from, again, the community. More of
Mm-hmm.
now college is more noted as a scam right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's now shifting. We're shifting more and more away from the educational piece and focusing on college is a scam. College is not that. But again, going going to this going to fields like STEM, you need that foundational background,
Right.
that calculus, that statistics, that chemistry, that rigorous um, academic foundation to basically learn those things. And then your career, as you move into your career, it teaches you more. But again, we as a community are now moving away from the educational piece. We're more focusing on, hey, college is a scam, but we're not even giving them the alternative. Okay, if college is a scam, what's the alternative?
Right. I'm glad you mentioned that. And for you guys there, we're really having, I think, a very, very important live stream. And we have our celebrity. Well, I think all three of y'all celebrities, but the man of the hour, or the guest of honor, is right here, living proof on what should be done. That's why I'm like, I'm just gonna tell y'all straight up, because it's almost as I think if I ran into Dr. Dunbar and my son was with him, selfies all day. I'm telling you, man. My son, we went, we had a dental appointment, and my son had an orthodontist take care of his teeth, and I'm hearing a bzzz, dude had nappy hair, and I'm sitting there like, that's a black man, and so when he was done, I was like, wow. I said, can my son take a picture with you? You know, because usually, this kind of stuff usually is like like you said, Asian and Arab, maybe Latino. They fly people in from other countries doing dental stuff, but a black man. So I'm like, and then the best part about this is that when you get these black men in profession, and my money's going there, I feel better that my money's going there, and it's not a racist thing, but I'm into recycling black dollars. Making sure that whatever my earnings, whatever I'm paying with my earnings, go to another person with their earnings. Maybe I'm old school, but I'm in awe and appreciation when people follow those pathways. But this goes into my next question here. And please hit the like button. Please subscribe to Dr. Dunbar's channel that's in the description box. Hit the like button because we try to end this with a bang. Okay. Um, when we have these discussions, such as how engineering cannabis was alluding to about college being a scam, I know a lot of people that got degrees and pushing carts in the parking lot. All kinds of different things that like I said, to me it sounds like discouragement. But I'm hearing all these things, but the question would lie in this realm here. Why, or based on your observation here, why are specific majors and degrees not covered in the anti-college discussion, like being a doctor, a lawyer? Why? How come they tend to go elsewhere, but don't want to tackle on the part about like a Dr. Dunbar?
A lot of times, may I add to that one? A lot of times it's a
Yeah.
class related issue. They are really not around people who are doctors, who are physicians, surgeons, orthodontists, oral maxillofacial surgeons, pharmacists. They're around people who had difficulty, who in going to colleges, and they are highlighting that difficulty. But the other thing is that they're not showing that the people like Dr. like Sean DeH, that nurse practitioners make 111,000 per year. They're not talking about those types of jobs and the things that they're doing. So there's always a trade-off. We're not saying go and borrow $100,000 to go to school, but most of the public HBCUs you can get through without that kind of investment. But you need to invest something. $30,000, $40,000 is not an outlandish investment to get your skills together to be financially secure. If you don't want to do that, you can get into the health profession scholarship for the U.S. military, Army, Navy, Air Force, and also you can get to the National Health Service Corps. So I think the excuses are based on that the people who are saying that they don't value higher education. And another thing, as you move up in social class, education is a part of that development to the upper middle class. So you have a lot of people who are millionaires who are on, and I'm not totally knocking it, even though I am somewhat, in love and hip hop, basketball wives. They're multimillionaires, but some people consider them low class and ghetto. Maybe I'm not saying that, but the point is they have not acclimated to the upper class lifestyle. Their children should be able to go to these higher tier college prep schools, and you should be able to see their children developing private equity firms, major law firms. They should be able to be major business people coming out. If your father is making $3 million a year as a lineman for the Washington Commanders, then you should be able to go to St. Albans, and then you should be able to go to Virginia Tech, Caltech, or somewhere. You should be able to go to Wharton and work for the owner of that team and find out how to do private equity to develop the types of things. But right now, we're not seeing that. And so education used to be, especially the Ivy League and the regional powerhouse schools, that is the, what do we call it, proving ground, or the association ground for the power elite. The children go to those schools to mate. It's to a lesser degree in the historically Black colleges, but that's where the Fords, the Kennedys, all these families that you read about, they met their husbands and wives at those schools. And if we're neglecting to get there and we're not utilizing our HBCUs in similar ways, so you don't only want to become a millionaire, you want to be a well-educated millionaire, and you want your children and grandchildren to be well-educated to take that to the next level. So if you made $3 million a year, your children should be able to turn that into a $30 million a year enterprise, and your grandchildren should be able to turn that into a $300 million a year enterprise. And that's what happens if we look at Jerry Jones, owner of the Dallas Cowboys. His father owned grocery stores. He got into oil wildcatting. But the other thing, he married well. His wife's father is the one that loaned him money to get into, bailed him out of a couple of failed businesses, loaned him money. So we need to understand the importance of education for education's sake, and not just STEM. The liberal arts are critical as well for critical thinking skills. A lot of these companies like Accenture, Deloitte Technology, SAP America, they will hire people with a high GPA, with a liberal arts degree, and teach them technology consulting. And that's where you have that, because they have the other skills that they want. They have the people skills. They're smart. They have the demeanor. And so all of the things like this, being anti-education, especially in the 21st century digital economy, is not going to help Black men overall. It's not going to help. You got to be open to education.
And real quickly, I'm glad that Jared Mackey. This is the usual pushback in these discussions.
And I'll say this: in the discussion, they always go to the extreme. They always say we have to look at Mark Zuckerberg and creator of Microsoft, Bill Gates. But the funny thing is, the resources they used they actually went to Harvard, and their parents were actually highly educated people who funded their first year in colleges, where they interacted with people and basically got the ideas to start their companies. So again, and also, these are only two people, but most of all these tech companies are run by highly educated people. 90% of it. Elon Musk is a PhD in engineering. Anybody who you want, most of the people who are basically running these tech firms are highly educated. People who created YouTube were two highly educated computer scientists. Look, I always reference PayPal Mafia. These were individuals. Elon Musk was one of them that started PayPal, and then most of them branched out to create the biggest tech companies you can think of. YouTube. The person that created YouTube came from PayPal Mafia, and these were highly educated people. 90% of new tech firms are created by educated people coming from either Google, Facebook, or even other industries. We are looking at right now, education is being pushed away from the Black community. We are trying to push that education bit away. In if you major in STEM in most STEM colleges in HBCU, you come out. I can tell you for certain, if you go and major in data science, you are guaranteed a six-figure salary when you come out. A huge six-figure salary in data science in any firm, even in the government. They will give you a lot of money just being a data scientist. And this is where it's moving into. I'm a data scientist, and the percentage of Black people in data science is just 2%.
Yeah.
And this field is pushing innovation in everything, in AI and everything. But we're only 2%. We only represent 2% of people in data science.
Yeah.
I go to my office, I see a lot of white people. I don't see any Black person. And this field pays 200K and basically, and they're begging. I get calls daily asking if I can change a job every month,
Mm.
and we're not seeing that. We're not seeing people measuring in these. In again, it's hard. The investment is upfront. You invest your time, invest your effort upfront. The results are after. And I can tell you from experience, the results outweigh your investments because, again, it's a very lucrative field, but we are not being represented. We rather say, hey, this field is not for me. I'm not seeing black people in it. And again, people who even major in it, who are in this field, they don't even come to YouTube to say, hey, I'm the only one I've seen coming to YouTube to spread this message. AI and all this is lucrative and it's there, but most of them are not coming to the YouTube because again, we believe that entertainment and all that is saturating YouTube and all that toward and marketed towards our community. AI and all this is not. It's not. It's the hard stuff.
Mm.
But
And
again, investing in hard stuff leads results.
Yeah, I think piggybacking off that, I think imaging and messaging definitely matter, and there's not a lot of exposure to AI uh, and those associated fields.
yeah, because that's what I've been listening to. Because it's see, people assume that these discussions are only on in this space or whatever YouTube, but no, I've been hearing this for years. And years ago, back then, you had some of the older people that were really putting that message across. And since a lot of older people have retired, now newer people are coming in, and that's when I start seeing how maybe there's an agenda kicking in. But for some reason, no matter how many decisions people are making, is usually the black male is holding the end of the bag. He's not really benefiting from the decision that people are making. And I had to look and I had to really really back up engineering cannabis. Is that after everything is done, I think the missing element is us being in the higher education to help make the decisions on the people that have the trades that could be hired through HR. We're missing that link. If anybody look at demographics.com, we are really top heavy in the trades where it goes construction, some parts of the engineering that does not require degrees, law enforcement. We're there, and I'm not saying top heavy as far as like excessive, but we have quite a bit of people in that field, right? But we're really hurting in this other part where Dr. Dunbar is.
And the funny thing, the trades are moving into more tech. The
Yeah.
trades
Yes. Yes.
are going into IoT, AI. You have to code right now. We're creating automotive. They're creating an automated trucking vehicle.
Hmm.
What do you think when they want when it's flooded the roads? All these automated vehicles flooded the roads. Who do you think is going to repair it? It's not an auto mechanic that doesn't have any kind of coding or tech skills. In order to repair those cars, you have to have tech skills.
Yep.
You have to be able to code and talk to the vehicle.
Yep.
This is where it's moving. Even our refrigerators are now going to be highly AI motivated.
Yep.
So
Cars.
everything, cars, vehicles, everything will soon be highly technical. And now you, as someone who wants to go into trades, you not only need to learn how to fix it, but now you have to learn how to read the code. You have to learn the code it's saying. You have to interpret that code and see how you can repair it. This is where it's moving to. A Tesla right now, if you go, a Tesla is a specialized vehicle. Not every mechanic can go under it and go repair it. You have to have specialized skills just to repair a Tesla. This is where it's going to. And this is where we need to talk to people about. This is the trades are going, yes, the trades are good specialized skill, but it's moving into a technical skill too.
Hmm.
But no, we're not pushing that. We're always pushing trades, trades. I say, yes, trades are good, but just know in the next 15, 20 years, the trades you know today, it's not going to be the trades it's not going to be the same trades you know in the next 15 years. It's going to change. Right now, even construction, they're creating automated vehicles to do construction, to build houses. So the trades are moving in technical side. So we need not only focus on trades, but also focusing on the future of the trades. So people keep talking trades, but let's focus on the future of the trades.
Now
What's
let
going
me
to
ask you
happen?
guys this. Let me ask you guys this because I asked this before, and maybe I get a different answer since time has went by. Why is there always, well, not yeah, why is there often an is or conversation when it comes to trades and college education when you can do both? Why is there is an or? Why you think where do you think that's coming from?
That's a good question. I think I don't know. Maybe there's a perception that a college degree is the magic bullet. Um, I think again, part of my messaging is you have to be careful of what you go to college to study, and yeah, maybe it's just viewed as a magic bullet, and those folks who pose that response feel like that there are other avenues.
I don't think it is. I think it's both. Right now, I have a brother who's a civil engineer who's trying to open a construction company. He works with people who are basically in the trades. Well, he owns the company. He's never done any carpentry or anything, but he's trying to own a construction company. There's no either or. I think right now everything is blending together. The trades, technical, everything is blending together. But we're neglecting that future talk. We are still look again. Everybody's talking of the future, but we are still looking at the present, and we need to stop just focusing on the present and say, how is this trade going to be in the next 5 years? If you're a plumber, is are you going to be using meters? Are you going to be using sensors? Are you going to be using other stuff? If you're a carpenter, how are you going your measurements? You're not going to use a tape, and you might use a laser and all that more technical applications. So again, the present talk is good, it's fine, but the future talk is where we need to be focusing on. Again, our kids are growing up. We need to know where, okay, you want to go into trades, but also at the same time, why not go learn a little bit of coding? Why you can be an electrician. You can learn a little Python while you're an electrician, or you're a carpenter. Hey, why not learn a little bit of, again, Python? Anything just to improve our IoT. So the trades and everything are good and present talk, but again, we need to focus on the future. What is going to happen? Again, there are articles coming out every day on, again, these technologies are going to improve the future this way. There are people talking about space. They're talking about exploration in space. That these are the future we need to talk on. But we're the major focus now is the present. What what great entertainer is doing this? But the future talk is neglected more again. I've not seen anybody. Everybody talks about trade, but I've not seen anybody say, "Hey, how's the trade going to look in the next 5 to 10 years?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody's talked about that. How's this trade going to look? How is the carpentry going to look in the next 5 years? How is this electrician who's wiring this panel? How is again the panel will change. Evolution of technology. How you wire your house will change in the next 5 to 10 years. How is that going to be looking at? Because right now Siri and all that is basically applying to your house. Would that be applied into the electrical circuits? How is that going to change?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So nobody's talking about that. We're still focused on trades. That's fine, but we need to know what in the next 5, 10 years how these trades are going to change.
So you mentioned like entertainment and things like that, and it's probably we've probably been beating this like a dead horse, but I'm just going to ask it again. Why are we not promoting the Dr. Dunbars or other professions enough in our community? Why are we not promoting the pathways and stuff like that? Shouldn't that be an urgency?
I think that could I add to that as well. I think it is a class issue. A lot of people are very anti upper middle class. They want to call people bougie, bourgeoisie. But shouldn't your goal be to move up financially, educationally, and move up to the higher status? Other people, I'm not as familiar with it, but I don't think when people who are Hicks, when they make it in the oil industry or something like that, they do hire people who can teach them etiquette. They send their children to private college prep schools. They're not, Jerry Jones is not his grandchildren are not living the life that he lived. You understand what I'm saying? They are well educated and they will live a different life. And so we have to get to understand the village that this keeping it real, I'm going to do like I always did. That's not helping us. This society is moving very rapidly, and we'll have to get to the understanding that if we don't do this as a village, we've seen that they have imported people. The H-1B, most of the, like 75% of the H-1B visas are from India. And they have, over the last 30 years, strategically brought people into healthcare and IT to where we have to go through all types of hoops to get Blacks into healthcare and IT. And they have brought a large number of people from different countries, primarily to India, and they're now dominating these fields. And that could have easily been if we had been politically in position to say, well, we can bring some people from India, but we can train a lot of our people from our HBCUs to man these positions, from our JCs. But the point of the matter is, this is a class issue that people, I think there's the degree of fear about learning these things, especially when they're mathematics based. And a lot of these, we'll get on this if you don't as well, Mike, a lot of these fake for-profit colleges, they take out the math component and they tell these people that they're equal to someone who's got a Bachelor of Science from Georgia Tech or from Texas Tech or Virginia Tech or University of Michigan, and they're not on the same level. The person from the University of Michigan will be that project manager. He will be that vice president. He will be the chief information officer, while they'll pitch and hold that person from that for-profit school in the dungeon of technology. And we're having that problem right now because of the neglect of skills development. You have a lot of these kids going to these fake for-profit schools that have been sued by the federal government. ITT was sued by the Federal Trade Commission and basically closed because they were not doing what they did. They damaged a lot of brothers in the military, men in the military, and they were not teaching what they said. They watered down these schools. They've taken out the mathematics and science component, and they're trying to call people engineers. And I'm not knocking it, but engineering has a very set course of science and math background. And a lot of these technicians that get these expensive degrees from these fake for-profit colleges are calling themselves engineers, but that's questionable. So we really need the village to wake up. We need to we need to be comfortable in moving up in class. You may have started out of a lower middle class background, but now you have a PhD. You're working, you're at a high level in the government, you're high level in industry. You may be a personal injury lawyer who's become an engineer. You might be a nurse practitioner making $112,000. You're not the same person, and especially your children are not. Your children are now upper middle class. They're going to nice suburban schools. They dress differently. They speak differently. They're learning things at a higher level. So we have to really be comfortable with moving up in class and stop saying that because you are upper middle class now, you're bougie. You're just upper middle class. This is your lifestyle now.
Now,
Hey,
go ahead.
Hey, I can hang out for another 10 minutes.
Okay, we got you.
I'm gonna have to drop. I just want to piggyback off of what Ray said. I think in terms of handing out engineering degrees without a mathematics component, that's particularly dangerous when you think about people designing bridges.
Yeah.
You know, and all kinds of things. You'll have accidents like you did in Minnesota years ago. But I think everyone should also be mindful of what messaging is being imparted upon our people from the mainstream media and pop culture. And I'm really thinking about why Dr. Claude Anderson stressed creating our own media, because you don't really see Black scientists. You just don't in pop culture and in the mainstream media. So I just think that's an area we have to figure out how to impact as well.
And the reason why I mentioned the urgency, and please, people, get this book, Medical Apartheid. Oh my God. It makes you look at your doctor sideways. And and I already knew some of this stuff, but you're when you have a doctor, dentist, lawyer, or whatever, you're relying on someone to make a decision that could affect your life forever. And these people do have degrees. That's what I'm saying. But your Indian doctor has a degree. Your Latino lawyer has a degree. Your Chinese dentist have a degree. But it's something about us where it's like, and I'm not saying that just because a black person, your black dentist has a degree, they're going to make sure you have all your teeth. I'm just saying that you have you have a more chance to keep things intact. This is important. Go ahead, Ray.
Oh yeah, I'm just agreeing with you. There's something called cultural competency. When you have someone who's grown up in your background and who understands your hesitancy to go to doctors, and you can talk to them and calm them to let you know you're communicating with them in their language. Now, sometimes some person from a totally different culture may not understand that hesitation. They don't understand that great grandparents. They don't understand how segregation was and how great grandparents were hesitant to do things, and how and they also don't understand the segregation of the economy, where you have people who are very poor and they primarily get their health care when they go to the emergency room. So it's called developing culturally competent physicians, and that's what's one of the reasons why they developed Morehouse School of Medicine to address that. And that's what Howard and Meharry still do. And now Xavier University of Louisiana is now putting up the resources to develop its own medical school, because they've been number one in developing Black doctors and dentists in the U.S. So, we need to address these issues, but we cannot want a person to be like Dr. Dunbar, or be an orthopedic surgeon, or to be an attorney, a corporate attorney, and say, quote, he doesn't have swag. I think we're going to have to do a thing to say, yeah, getting a PhD in pharmacology, that's swag. That's the kind of swag we really need, because a lot of this thug life culture is continuing to damage us, because that in part is why there is still a negative image of Black men, a dangerous image of Black men, to the degree that even well-meaning, well-mannered, articulate gentlemen like Dr. Dunbar, they have, because he's tall, and he has to, and I'm sure because I'm 6'3", you have to position yourself when you're going, you have to make people feel comfortable around you, because you might not know you're towering over it. Because I used to not know that. I'm 6'3", I weigh 200 pounds. So when I am, even as a young man and as an adult now, you don't know you're towering over. You're just a tall guy. You're going to school, but you are, you might be foreboding to some people. So when they're literally looking up to you. They're not as comfortable until they feel at ease with you to tell you about things. You might be going to a professor who's 5'9", who has a lot of things to help you get where you got to go, but they got to feel comfortable with you. And so these are the things that we need to address, because this is crucial, because as Engineering Cannabis and other people are saying, these things are happening without us. Mm-hmm. And so we don't want to be left behind. And certain population groups are being left behind. Now the sisters are moving forward. People are this anti-education thing, even liberal arts education, because corporate America and the government has said that we will take. You're showing the discipline to get this degree. This means something to us. In addition to that, Art, we'll have to get what's the brother name, Artisan Mac, to come on. We're not as representative in the construction trades and things like that as we need to, especially for the millennials. He talked about when he went into carpentry and at construction level carpentry in the 90s, how there were several number of blacks, but he goes on to sites where he's the only black person there. So we've got to address a lot of issues on that in the skilled trades, as well as advanced technology, as well as being in college as well. So we got to address it across the board.
I'll probably end with this. Well, first of all, Art, you have exceptional drawing skills.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
But going back to what Ray said, I was just thinking that we do have a lot of self-inflicted wounds, and the swagger thing. If no one else takes anything else away from this discussion, just remember that you don't have any swag thing. That was from a woman in the educated class. So I think that we are constantly in our minds navigating and determining and fighting what Black is. And even when you're in the educated class, there are specific ideas and archetypes of what Black is. And that's something we wrestle with. Is it, if I get a PhD, I still have to learn how to dance. I still better know how to play spades. I still better know how to barbecue.
Right.
Those are experiences that are uniquely ours. But I just wanted to say that's something as we're troubleshooting this and we're trying to course correct and offset some of these negative things. Some of these things are still running rampant in the educated class.
Yeah. And engineering cannabis, you wanted to throw some last words in?
Yeah. And again, this is for the trades again. Within this construction phase, before the construction even begins, the person who signs up the construction, they just pay the person. They pay the person millions of dollars just to sign off the construction. It's based on the degree, the civil engineer, the structural engineer, and the PE license, the professional engineering license. And you, in most government contracts, you have to have that to get your construction signed off. And that guy, without that penmanship, without that, construction can't start. And they pay that guy just because he has a PE license and he can sign off on it. They pay that guy more than they pay most construction. And he has to sign off on it. So that's telling you that even in the trades, just to begin a construction, you have to have someone who actually knows, they understand the structure, understands everything, just to sign off on that. And most people who have that are not people of color.
That's right.
Most people who sign off on these are not people of color. Most people who have construction companies who own it are not people of color. Again, you want to own a construction company, fine. But do you want to own a construction company that bids for the government and signs off for the construction too? Or you can pay somebody to sign up for you. Yes, that's fine, but you have to pay somebody.
Yeah, you got to save that money.
But if I can save that money, I can save an extra 300,000 just for penmanship.
Right.
Again, a stamp and a penmanship, 300,000.
Man. But I'm glad you guys came up, and shout out to JB for coming up here too. I think he had bad reception. The overall message, and I will try to have more like this. I think a lot of stuff that we've been really complaining about I think most of the stuff that most of the ways we can solve this is through a position of power, you know. And what I mean by power, I'm like, you know, when you're doing things on a higher level to where you have enough ammo to deal with the big people, you know, the big dogs, you know. And so sometimes I think that goes with higher learning and moving up in ranks. And once you're there, then you can be in position to have people with those construction contracts and electronical contracts and plumbing or whatever. I think you have an influence with that. People don't understand that, you know. And I think that would definitely cut that 40, was it 41% unemployed, or was it more? It might be more now, but I think it'll cut into that like big time if you at least encourage people to be in these Dr. Dunbar positions, or a lawyer or what have you. I mean, you'd be amazed. But I appreciate Dr. Dunbar coming up here. Please subscribe to his channel. It's called Big Discussion76. He has 4 channels, everyone. So if you don't know which ones they are, please listen to the playback because he has to go. But I appreciate you coming through, and we definitely will have more like this. And thank everybody for your support. Thank you, Dr. Dunbar. I don't have an
Thanks, Dr.
applause.
Dunbar.
Hey, thanks.
Yeah. Thank you, gentlemen. Everyone,
Art, that picture that you have of Dr. Dunbar has a lot of swag in it, man. I can tell.
Yeah, he sent me. That's like, okay, you want me to do this one? All right. So, and I appreciate BGS and O'Shea for sharing, and whoever else I don't know who shared. I appreciate it. But your support is very, very necessary and important. So thank you guys for coming, and we're gonna work on the next one for next Sunday. So peace and blessings.